crap, you guys. We are live. What is up, fight nerds and dirty gamblers? I am Erik, and this is Erik Bets Fights. It's already Thursday night, you guys. I can't believe it. This week has been crazy in mostly good ways, I think. But yeah, we're only about 48 hours, I guess less than 48 hours away from the fights now, and I am ready for that. But Thursday night means it is time for us to do some big money bets. Let's go ahead and see who we got in the chat first. We got Grateful Dude in here. He's excited to hear some big money bets. I am too. Plays and Fades Sports says, let's go. We got Patrick from Addicted to Combat. Big money incoming, man. Let's hope so. Sicky, he's in here every week. Let's go. That always reminds me of Rancid. Were you guys ever Rancid fans? Their second album is called Let's Go. Anyway, awesome that y'all are here. We got 5 live viewers right now. Hopefully you guys are in for a little bit of a treat. I think you probably are. I've got a great guest tonight, but before we get into talking about who my guest is, I'm going to give you like a little bit of a recap from last week. It went pretty well. You know, on this show, we build a 2-leg parlay, then we build a 4-leg parlay, then we build a 6-leg parlay. And it's like, you know, a lot of times when you build a 6, or, you know, when you're building a parlay like that, like one guy is bound to ruin it for you. And it's just, you hope that guy is down in the 6-legger, right? And I've had a few weeks lately where I put somebody right up on that top there that ended up ruining it for me. But that didn't happen last week. So last week, my 2-legger was Mark Diakisi and Patty Pimblett. So that one hit. My 4-legger, I added Nathaniel Wood and Mason Jones. He was the parlay buster. He was the parlay buster for everybody, I think, last week. And then, you know, I added what I thought were the 2 riskiest fighters for my 5th and 6th leg, which were Volkan Oezdemir, who was at -150, and Nikita Krylov at -190, and those both hit. So I did hit 5 out of 6 legs, but unfortunately the leg that didn't hit was in the 4-legger, so we only hit 2 legs there. Lou Betches up in here. I'm a man that likes women, but I have a boner for Erik and Gordo. You know, I got to say, Lou, I don't think you're alone there. I think that's normal. I don't think you should carry guilt with it. And Gabe Huber, there he is. Let's go, Erik. How's it going, Gabe? If y'all don't know Gabe, he's cool. I chat with Gabe on Twitter quite a bit. Victor's up in here. What's up, fight nerds and dirty gamblers? Indeed. Lou says Gordo is 24 in American years, so it's not weird. Yeah. I think that's right. I think that's how you do the math on that, right? Lou, how old am I in Canadian years then? I'm not sure how that works. I always say, I mean, a lot of you guys watching know this. I lived in Fargo, North Dakota for 21 years. It was about a 2-hour drive to Canada. So I guess I'm almost as close as you can be. A good friend of mine grew up about 8 miles from the Canadian border. So, and he says sorry, and he says against and those sorts of things. So he might as well be right. I'm not poking fun at our guest or Canadians, not at all. Don't worry about that. Anyway, folks, let's go ahead and bring in our guest. Oh, I also, as far as the props from last week, the recap. So we do 6 props. Last week was the first time I ever gave out a prop that had a minus sign in front of it. And I kind of made a big deal about that because I'm like, you know, I've had weeks here where my lowest prop was like plus 500, but it's like, there's no point in putting those big numbers out there if they're not hitting, you know? So there was a bet that I had placed last week that I really, really liked. That was a prop, and it was -150. And that was Nathaniel Wood by decision. That was maybe my favorite bet on the whole card. And that one did come through. So it's a good thing I put that minus money prop in there because it's the only prop that came through for me last week. So hopefully we can bump that up a little bit this week. But, tonight's guest, you guys, pretty excited to be bringing him in here. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the guy first. He doesn't know that I did my homework a little bit, but he is currently up 58.2 units in 2022. I don't know how many units overall. I tried to find that out, but I ran out of time. He is currently in first place in the Lock of the Night Challenge. He's leading a field of 42 cappers. There's 42 people in this contest. This man is currently in the lead with a 21-4 record on events, 65.28 units of profit, and a 52% ROI. Those are impressive numbers. They get even more impressive if you realize how badly he's blowing the competition out of the water, because the second place capper is 15-10 on events compared to his 21-4, 50.99 units of profit compared to his 65.28, and 41% ROI compared to his 52. So the man knows what he's doing, and he's killing it. In addition to those impressive numbers, he's also like one of the nicest, most humble, and just down to earth and cool guys that you will find in this community, in which there can sometimes be a little bit more ego and ugliness than there should be. So it's always nice to surround yourselves with surround yourself with fellas like this. So anyway, from Fades and Plays Sports, he's coming at us from the great white north of Canada. We're going to bring him in right now, folks. None other than GordoGambles. How's it going, Gordo?
What an intro. I appreciate that so much, man. Doing your homework. I appreciate that, man. Super fun to be. I'm excited to be here, man. We were supposed to do a show a few weeks ago, and I'm happy to finally get here. I've done my research as well, and I look forward to breaking these down with you. A pay-per-view, so this is just an absolute honor.
Yeah, man. It's great to have you here. I really appreciate that. Before we get started, do you mind? Okay, Sicky says, I'm feeling a Moreno TKO sub and a Pantoja TKO sub. Risky, but I'm going for it. Yeah, man. Why not? Before we jump into the bets, Gordo, do you mind? I didn't prepare you for this, but anyway, do you mind giving us just like a little bit of background about just kind of how you got involved in betting on MMA, maybe how you got involved in content creation, just kind of whatever you want to tell us as far as your background of who you are in this space and kind of how you came to be here.
For sure, man. And I know Lou's already talked about my age in the chat. Of course, I am a bit younger and a bit newer to the space. And this is something that I've only been doing for a few years, but I've been watching fights my whole life. It's what I've loved to do. And when I was finally old enough to do so, DFS is where I fell in love with it. DFS is something I've been doing my whole life. I started my page and my Twitter based on the DFS community and being able to go out there and send out lineups and make lineups. And that's really what got me started into this. I'm a DFS player first, better second. And I'm kind of transitioning over to that betting side now that DFS is kind of limited up here in Ontario. But been watching UFC my whole life. My dad, who's my best friend, has been watching fights with me all the time. And it's one of these things where growing up, having GSP as an inspiration in fights has always been by my side. So when I was finally able to go out there and make the content, I realized that I love talking to people. I love interacting with people online, and things have grown up from there. I mean, we started off with DFS, like I mentioned, and now we're betting, and now we're making friends. Liam picks fights a guy who I've met in person and a guy I've done a content with, and it's just something that really got me interested, going out there, talking, having a good conversation, meeting nice people like you, and then being able to make money on the side. It just seems like an all-around win for everything, right? Making money, making friends, having a good time. It's an absolute blast. So nothing better than watching fights in the weekend, and even Tuesday we're counting Dana White Contender Series and stuff like this, going onto the people's channels, being able to have a platform to talk to people, interact with people in the chat. It's why I love doing it. So appreciate the question. Really made me think what got me into it, but definitely DFS first, but betting has really caught my heart recently.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for giving us that background. I appreciate that. I miss playing DFS. I live in Vegas now, where we're not allowed to play DFS. But when I was living in Minnesota, I did play DraftKings quite a bit. I definitely, I didn't really know what I was doing. I mean, I knew what I was doing, ideally, as far as like, picking winners and that sort of thing. Or I sort of knew what I was doing, hopefully, but I never looked into all of the all the kind of background stuff as far as figuring out how much owned somebody's going to be and all the sort of like science of actually putting those lineups together. I never knew anything about that, but I will say I'm proud of this. I did get a tax form from DraftKings one year. So even without all of that, I did manage to win enough to get a tax form one year. So, and now anytime I go back to Minnesota to visit my family for the weekend, I have a buddy, he might even be popping into the chat here tonight, I'm not sure, but I have a buddy who is an MMA fan back home, and he'll text me and remind me, hey, don't forget you can play DraftKings this weekend, because if I'm in Minnesota, and I'll be like, yes, thank you.
Yeah, for sure, awesome. Man. For me, it was the other way around. I was away last weekend. I was in St. Louis, and I'm like, oh my god, I can actually play DFS, and I played a first DFS lineup forever. I got all these models and spreadsheets I've built over the years that were just taken away from me last month, because that's when it went away, and finally able to use them again, and it was great. But I definitely feel something you used to playing and then it's gone, but I do miss it. But you know what? We got betting. I can't complain at all.
So if we don't have to get into this too much, but this is the first time hearing of this. Did Canada illegalize DFS or something, or what's the story there?
So prior to, I think it was, prior to March 4th was the date. April 4th. Prior to April 4th, we were unable to bet. It was all offshore bookies, all offshore, nothing in Canada itself or Ontario itself. And as soon as they were able to legalize everything, as soon as they brought in the DraftKings, the FanDuels, and everything that was finally being able to use in Ontario, they really clamped down on restrictions. And I think something had to go with it. They had to make DraftKings and FanDuel choose between a sports book or a DFS, and they went towards a sports book route, making so that we can't even touch the app at all, which makes the Ironman I'm running pretty hard too. But no, they took it away from us completely up here in Ontario. So it's been 3 months now, but oh well, nothing you can do.
But it's probably one of those things where they'll get back to it over time, right? Like it's like since it's
Eventually.
new, they probably made them choose or whatever. It's like kind of like right now, a bunch of states in the U.S. are starting to legalize sports betting, and they're always going to sort of like ease into it because they're worried about the slippery slope or whatever. But I figure eventually it'll all work out. Gordo, I believe it.
Oh, for sure. And I was in the States to tech out of school, and I'll probably be heading to States for school as well. So might be in the US of A for a while and able to play DraftKings for once. So I guess it doesn't affect me too much, but it definitely does suck.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and jump into talking about some bets a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about our 2-leg parlay. Since you're the guest, I'm going to go ahead and give you the option. Do you want to kick it off, or do you want to have me kick it off?
Let's hear what you got to say, man. Your show. Let's hear what you got to say.
All right. I probably end up giving this disclaimer every week. Maybe not every week, because some weeks I don't struggle with it too much. But just with the way lines have been lately, this was another card where I had a really hard time. Like we end up with some fighters who are so chalky that it's like I just don't even want to put them in a parlay. And then so I struggled a little bit with this one, and I feel like I might be a little bit risky even in the 2-legger, but I had to pick my spot. So we'll see how we did. So for my 2-legger, my first fighter is sitting at -175, and it is Don'Tale Mayes. And I feel a little weird, just generally speaking, trusting Don'Tale Mayes, but obviously it's all about the matchup and his opponent Hamdi Abdelwahab has been he's kind of been he's been a big topic of conversation, I think, in the community lately, just as far as once people got around to watching the tape on him. He wrestled in the 2016 Rio Olympics for Egypt, so he's got some impressive sounding credentials behind him, but watching his tape, I just frankly, the guy's just not very good. And I think he's going to be undersized. I think Tapology has him listed at 6'3". I don't think he's 6'3", Gordo. I think the guy's like 6 feet tall, maybe. I think he's going to be hugely undersized here and outskilled even by Don'Tale Mayes, in my opinion. So I did throw Don'Tale Mayes on there. And my second leg is going to be Brandon Moreno at -200. Basically, I feel like he's faster. He's got a reach advantage. He's more well-rounded. He's already beaten Kai Kara France once. Basically, I think he can do it again. I just don't see much that makes me think that the fight is going to play out a whole lot more differently. Obviously, Kai Kara France has a lot of power. He can crack. Brandon Moreno's got a chin. He's tough to hurt. He's tough to put away. So just generally speaking, I see Moreno probably walking away with the decision here. So those two together, I end up with +136. I always try to hit even money or close to it on that first 2-legger if I can. So we got a little bit of plus money here at +136.
Awesome. Just out of curiosity, what lines are we using here? Are we using a certain sports book?
Oh, I used to use William Hill just because that's the one that I had access to. But what I started doing is just pulling up the best fight odds and grabbing like one of the better ones. There were a few here. Like there was one book that had Don'Tale Mayes at -115, but that's not very representative of where he's actually at. So I didn't use that line. But so I try to grab a line that's good, but like realistic,
We're going to talk about that line later too, because in that Lock of the Night challenge, you did mention any line on best fight odds is fair game. And whereas I feel kind of scummy using it, that is my Lock of the Night play this week, just because of if it's available to everyone, I do think people are going to use it as well. But I'll talk about that later. Let's get into my greasy 2-leg here. And it's one where I'm coming on your show. I want to be a good guest for you. I want to make sure that the first one I give out is at least good. It's not too risky. It's available to go out there and get its job done. So this one, actually, the line has moved since I did this research a couple of days ago, ready for the show. And now it has line. So now it knows no longer plus money. So I hate giving it out, but we're going to do it anyways because it's have written down here. First leg of the parlay is going to be Alexander Pantoja, -188. I'm using Bet365, which is the one I have open right now. -188. I do think he is the better all-around mixed martial artist. I do see the reasoning for the wrestling of Alex Perez and the ability to go out there and take him down. But I think the better offensive grappler is going to be Alexander Pantoja, the guy who's going to be able to add another submission loss to Alexander Perez's list of 4 losses now by submission. Then we look at the battle on the feet. It should be close, but I do think the better minute winner, the better guy with more durability, more tools, more better all-around mixed martial artist is going to be Alexander Pantoja, and at -188, I do really like him this week. I know we had someone talk about TKO sub. I don't mind that at all. I do think that we have a guy in Alexander Perez who hasn't fought in a long time, has struggled to cut weight in the past, who has shown to put his head in some very risky position submission-wise, and I do think that Alexander Pantoja can definitely take advantage of it, but he's the first leg of mine, -188, and this is where things get I kind of want to change this because it's a big money bets, and I promise you we're going to get to big money bets, but second leg, just to lock it up, we're going to take the big juicy, I don't even know if I should be parlaying him at this price tag, but -600 Michael Morales. It was -115. This parlay is now sitting at -127. So, man, I'm not doing my job, but I will get there. I promise I'll get there, Eric.
No, man, that's good.
But it's Michael Morales, -600. He's facing the short notice replacement out of Fujit, and a guy who, Michael Morales, undefeated, very, very young. I do think he has all the tools to get this done pretty easily, and I do think that he covers him in a lot of assets of the game. I think that despite having maybe the early grappling edge for Fujit, I do think that the young, powerful, the guy who's been training in Michael Morales is able to keep it up on the feet, piece him up, tons of power. I think he has a decent, let's say, eye for the sport as well. I do think he's pretty smart and has the ability to go out there and just run through Adam this week. Unfortunately, I'll have the cardio edge, I'll have the youth advantage, and I do think he goes out there and does pretty much live up to that -600 price tag. Again, I want to give you plus money. I'll get to plus money, I promise. But right now, my favorite 2-legger this week is going to be Pantoja and Morales.
I like it. Yeah, no, that's fine. You don't have to get to plus money there. You came pretty close. I don't make it every week either. And actually, I think with this show, when I'm doing my prep for this show, it's one of those things where I could change my mind and keep editing things until tomorrow, like I basically eventually reach a point where like, okay, the show's about to start. I got to go with what I'm going with here. So yeah, my 2-legger wasn't plus money probably an hour or two ago. And then I was moving stuff around and whatever. Yeah. It's one of those things where I feel like I've never really settled on it. I'm like, well, I could move him here. And, but yeah, no, I like that. I like that. And well, I won't set it up because I'm about to tell you who I got here anyway. So my 4-legger. So to recap, I had Dontel Mays and Brandon Moreno for my 2-legger, and then I'm looking to add at -175 Orion Kosi, and this was a spot where I wasn't feeling so sure about it, and I ended up making a post on Twitter just kind of asking people their thoughts because I was like, yeah, Kosi, basically I was thinking, yeah, Kosi should win, but I don't know that I'm as confident as a lot of people seem to be that he's just going to be able to go out there and easily get takedowns and just kind of mow through his opponent there. But I heard a lot of thoughts from people whose opinions I trust, people who are sharp and know what they're talking about. And I went back and watched Orion Kosi again to just kind of get a sense for, the styles of takedowns he does a little bit more and kind of the technique that he uses. And I did end up placing a bet on Kosi after doing a little more digging and hearing some thoughts from some smart people. So I put Kosi in at -175 as my 3rd leg. And then for my 4th leg, I did go with Michael Morales. I usually try to use, like, I might end up sneaking in like one big line like that in here. And he was the guy that I went with this week. I put him at -550. Like I put a lot of these together yesterday, and I don't know if I updated the lines or not. I probably didn't, but he's probably not even available at -550 anymore. But with those two, Kosi and Morales added at -175 and -550, I end up at +338.
You know what, man? I mean, we'll get into this shortly, but we see eye to eye in a lot of these fights. I'll tell you that for sure. Because you know what, my next 2 fighters, are your first 2 fighters, and it's really funny. I got Brandon Moreno as the first leg of it. Brandon Moreno, same thing you mentioned, really. I think he's beaten him once. He's able to do it again. I think despite the recent takedown defense improvements and striking improvements of Kai Kara France, that the power that he seems to hold isn't really going to be as effective against a guy in Moreno who has that toughness, the ability to go out there and withstand a lot of damage. And I think that despite having a really good takedown defense, it's not like he's unable to be taken down. Sure, he defended a lot of takedowns by Askar Askarov. I was there in Columbus. I thought Askarov won that fight, but we're not going to get into that. It's one where I do think that Moreno's the better fighter at -225. Is it wide to play straight because Kai Kara France is going to keep it close in the striking exchanges? Maybe, but in a parlay, I do think he's the type of guy to go out there. I think he wins the minutes. I think he's a better mixed martial artist. I think he has more of an offensive grappling threat, more of an offensive wrestling threat. I think he's just the more dangerous fighter all around. The problem you have when you're facing Kara France is you have always had that knockout risk. And I do think that out of almost everyone in the division, Moreno's one of the toughest dudes. And I do think he's able to go out there, withstand the striking onslaught, and able to mix it up on the ground and the feet. And at that, he's also able to keep it close in the feet as well, very close exchanges. So give me Moreno to get it done, minus 225. Again, same as you. Next leg of the parlay, we got Dontel Mays. And this is one where, like I said, lock the night play for me just because of the line. But I did bet Dontel Mays at minus 110 earlier in the week. So I do have some decent money on him because you said it. His opponent, 3-0 against almost nobodies. He may have a decent wrestling track record, but that's all he's got. When you look at the whole aspect of mixed martial artists, we got the bigger guy in Mays. We have the better grappler in Mays. We have the better striker in Mays, the guy with more, who's more proven in Mays, more cardio in Mays. He just seems like the all-around fighter, better fighter. So Hamdi has a lot to prove. He's getting to the UFC based of almost nothing. So props to him for doing so. But he's also coming in a short notice, also going to be a lot smaller, also have a lot left to prove. So you give me a guy in Dontel Mays at minus 170 here. And I do think he's able to go out there and get it done pretty convincingly. We're going to talk about him later. It's such a weird fight, right? A guy's 3-0 coming to the UFC. Dontel Mays isn't no world beater, and he's not one I really want to trust to have my lock of the night, but I do think he wins this fight pretty convincingly. So he's another guy I'm going to add. That 4-leg parlay is at plus 310 for me.
Nice. Yeah, we ended up about in the same range there. And yeah, watching the tape on Abdulwahab was so strange because, I mean, I don't remember what, so he's only got like 3 or 4 MMA fights, right? And then he's got a couple bare knuckle fights. I can't even remember what all I watched. I watched at least 3 or 4 different fights. One of them might have been I don't even remember, but I do remember that I don't think I saw him wrestle even once. And I also saw him get taken down in an amateur fight by a dude named, I think, Corey Newman or something like that. But yeah, I saw him get taken down by an amateur with a poor record and taken down pretty easily. So yeah, like he's a guy who has wrestling credentials, but how many times have we seen both fight wrestlers come into MMA who either don't even look to use their wrestling, or when they do, they find that the type of wrestling they have just doesn't translate that well to the mixed martial arts cage. So we don't even know if the guy's going to try to wrestle, and if he does, we don't know how effective it's going to be. And I don't necessarily think, even if he does get takedowns, okay, let's say he comes out and gets a takedown on Dontel Mays. I don't think that necessarily means he's going to be able to keep him down, or he's going to be able to finish him with ground and pound or anything. I think like we said, he's going to be at a size disadvantage. I think, and I also think, I don't know anything about his cardio, but just judging from what I've seen and the way that he fights, I'm going to guess that he's probably not going to have great cardio if the fight goes late. So yeah, I think everything points to Dontel Mays here. And actually Dontel Mays was the first bet I made on this card. When I'm doing the tape and I pull up the odds and I see a spot that looks like really good value and I'm feeling like my read is strong, I'll pull the trigger on that right there. And that was actually the only fight on this whole card where I did pull the trigger immediately after doing the tape and pulling the odds up. The other bets I've made were kind of after hearing some other people and digging around a little bit more. So yeah, you said he was your lock. I guess he's kind of mine too, because he was the only fighter that, where I felt good enough about the read and the line to make that bet right away. Sorry, I just blabbed for a long time there. So I shared my 4-legger, you shared your 4-legger. That's where we're at, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right, so I'm gonna bump into my 6-legger then. So to recap, I've got Mays, Moreno, Kosi, Morales, and my 5th leg is Alexander Pantoja. And yeah, like honestly, this fight was one where I didn't really feel like I had a strong read, and I did a guest spot on the Punchlist MMA podcast earlier this week, and after talking to Dale about it, and I put him down here at minus 160. I think he's more like in the minus 180 range or something like that now, isn't he? But yeah, Dale kind of talked to me about it and basically convinced me that the line on Pantoja was a good bettable line. And I've heard a lot of other sharp people on that bet this week too. So even though my read wasn't strong, sometimes you got to do that thing where you trust the community a little bit. And that's kind of what I'm doing in this spot. And then for my 6th leg at minus 155, I went with Matthew Semmelsberger. kind of the way that I broke down this fight earlier in the week, and I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but I see this as a spot. If we think about like the different sort of archetypes of fighters, to me this is a kind of a martial artist versus an athlete sort of spot, and then it comes down to like, well, does the martial artist in Morono, who's the more technical guy, the more skilled guy, I think you could say, but are his skills enough to overcome the athleticism of Semmelsberger, or is the athleticism of Semmelsberger going to be enough to overcome the skills of Morono, kind of thing? Not that Semmelsberger doesn't have skills, but you know what I mean. I'm kind of oversimplifying a little bit, but Semmelsberger has size, reach, strength, athleticism, aggression. He's got a lot of things going for him here. And of course, he is skilled as well. I'm not trying to say he's not, but yeah, I just think there's enough things going for Semmelsberger here that he's probably going to be able to overwhelm Morono. And all 6 of those together, then I come out to plus 1070.
Okay, we'll take that. And you know what? I was happy to hear you say Semmelsberger, not only because I also am on him, like he's my pick to win, but just because we're going to be different. I mean, we had 5 out of 6 the same. It's always a good sign we're on the same side here. I like that. But well, spoiler alert, another one the same. Orion Kosi, minus 188 now. I really do like him this week. He's a guy who's facing Blood Diamond, and we'll talk about that fight later because it's a very distinct grappler versus striker matchup, in my opinion. The better striker being Blood Diamond, the better grappler being Orion Kosi. And when you have a guy who has such a big grappling advantage, you want to see someone who's going to shoot takedowns, who's going to not really play to their ego, but go there and just take him down and do what he has to do. And I do think that Orion Kosi has the right mindset to go out there, grapple early, get him down. And I do think on the mat, it's night and day. I do think Kosi has the ability to put him out there really, really early. I think that the difference in the striking is less substantial than the difference in the grappling. I just truly think that once Kosi gets him down, he's able to get him out there early. I like his aggression. I like his power. I like his wrestling. And I like his submission game. And I think he gets him out there pretty early on. I liking him as well. But where we get different, I wanted to get to that plus money number, and I just beat you by a little bit on the total 6-legger. But we're going to take Nikolay Negumereanu. All right. He is now minus 110. When I remember when I did this, it was a couple days ago, he was the underdog, and I wanted to make sure I had at least one underdog in this big 6-legger, and mainly because he's facing a guy in Erik Pateria who is coming off the Dynamite Contender Series, who 20-2 record, don't know how fraudulent it is, but he's super powerful. And this is one of these weird matchups because you have a really, really powerful guy. It's like this this guy who has decent skills, decent athleticism, decent speed, but he's facing a guy with a brick for a head. I think Negumereanu has the ability to go out there and withstand a lot of the onslaught, a lot of the damage, push up the cage against the cage, drag him into deep waters, which Pateria hasn't really been dragged into that much, and really test out what this guy's got. This can be a perfect test for us to see where Pateria is, because on the record, it's very underwhelming. It's not a guy I really want to go out there and back at. Pateria 20-2, despite that shiny record. And I do think Negumereanu is going to have the wrestling advantage. I think he's going to have the ability to go out there and be more durable, throw power in his own right. So I'm liking him as an underdog. So with that, brings me up to 1101 plus 1101, so slightly above the plus 1,000, and we're going to take that any day.
I like it. Good stuff, Gordo. Yeah, I enjoyed hearing your thoughts on Negumereanu versus Ihor Pateria there. That's a fight that Siki was just mentioning. Morono versus Semmelsberger is such a hard fight to call. Yeah, that was one I was struggling with. But yeah, this Negumereanu versus Pateria is definitely a fight that I've thought about a lot this week, and I'm still not entirely sure where I stand on it. But yeah, I see it a little bit as one of those spots, kind of like you said. It's like, Negumereanu is far from a world beater, but he's a guy he's going to fight for your money. He's tough. We know he's been in there against some tough guys. He's shown. He's probably never going to be like toward the top of the division, but he's shown that he can beat UFC level talent. And I even think, I don't feel super confident in this read, but I think that when push comes to shove, Ihor might be the better fighter, or at least might be, like, for example, if they were both in a spot where they both had like 3 or 4 UFC fights, I feel like I might lean Pateria once he's had a little, a little bit higher level of competition and just a little more experience being in a big show and that sort of thing. So like, I think Pateria might end up being the better fighter, but as far as where they're at right now, yeah, I think that's the way to go. I want to address what Lou said here. Why does everyone on the show keep their shirts on? Is this broadcast from North Korea? I'm glad you said that, Lou, because usually Daz Files is here, and Daz isn't here today, but I want to show you guys something. Daz, I know Gordo. I'm sure you know Daz. I'm sure most of the people in the chat even know Daz. He's like the nicest, most supportive guy in the whole community. Like he basically shows up to pretty much every MMA show. He's in the chat. I mean, I don't know what. I don't know if the guy sleeps or works or what, because I swear he's in the chat for every MMA show that happens. But Daz sent me a T-shirt. He lives in Australia, you guys. He paid like, he bought a T-shirt for me and paid like $30 or something to mail it to me, and it arrived yesterday. So I want to show it to you guys. I was gonna wear it, but then I realized if I wear it, I can't show it to you. But so here's the front. It's got a, whoops, and that's embroidered. It's got an embroidered luchador, and on the back, whoops, my fan is blowing. It's got a luchador like choking out a shark, basically. So yeah, so Daz sent that to me in the mail. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize that because he's so damn cool. Daz is on a 24/7 MMA binge. He is, man. The guy is around so much. I told him about this when it happened too. A few weeks back, I had a dream about Daz. I had a dream that I was at a bar playing pool and Daz was there, but he was gigantic. He was like 6'8", like a 350-pound dude or something. And I was like, Daz, are you huge? And he's like, no, I'm not huge at all. So my brain made that part up. But I think it's just because he's such a huge supporter. You know, my brain made him larger than life. But anyway. Anyway, if you watch this later, Daz, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate the shirt. Let's go ahead and computer's up on me here. Just a second. We're going to move into the second part of the show. This is the part of the show we called my internet.
I don't know if it's on my end.
Okay.
Oh, I thought it was on my end. You got it. Okay.
Nope. No, it was me. I thought I had been having some issues. I just bought a new modem and I was like, what is happening? And then I looked and realized my computer was almost dead. My charging cord is plugged into my computer, but it wasn't plugged in on the other end. So my computer was starting to die. We should be okay now. Sorry about that, everybody. Anyway, I don't know which part you guys caught, but we're going to move into the second part of the show, the highly improbable portion, where Gordo and I are going to go through and we are going to share our 6 favorite prop bets for the card, starting with the lowest payout and moving up to the highest. I'm going to go ahead and, well, you know what, Gordo? Why don't we switch? I went first the first time, I think. Why don't you go ahead and go first for the prop portion?
All right. Well, I'll give it one that is not plus money. This is big money bets after all. So despite me not giving out a plus money bet here, we're going to give you one that is my favorite bet on the entire card. If it wasn't for that line mix up on best fight odds, this would be my lock of the night. And I haven't told anybody else this. So this is a spot where I'm giving it out exclusive here.
I've already got my pen ready. I'm writing it down.
I'm taking the under, the alternative over in the alternative under, in the Kosi versus Blood Diamond fight, first fight of the night. Pretty binary one. We talked about this before, and I do think that despite it being a bit juiced, it's one where I think you can definitely take advantage of it. Minus 190 on DraftKings, under 2.5 for Oregon Kosi versus Blood Diamond. Let's get into this one real quick. It's pretty simple. You have a guy who's the better offensive grappler, better wrestler, versus just a kickboxer. It's a mixed martial arts versus a kickboxer. I do think that ground victory, that path to victory is there for Orion Kosi. I was really close to making a round 1 sub for him, one of my big prop bets this week, but he's not going to be one of the 6, but you have to look into that as well. I think Kosi has a huge, clear ground advantage here, and I think he's able to go out there, shoot takedowns, and get the fight over really quickly in the first round. But what we've seen from these Kosi brothers is they seem to slow down if they're not able to get their opponents out of there. He was finished last time. He has been able to be touched on the chin. And I do think that Blood Diamond, despite having a real lack of ground skills, is a great kickboxer, has a lot of power on the feet, and definitely has the ability to put out Oren Kosi's lights in those second and third round. I do think that it's going to be a grapple-heavy game plan for Oren Kosi. I do think he has the ability to go out there and submit Blood Diamond. But if all that fails, if his arms get tired, if he can't get Blood Diamond out of there, most definitely we can get ourselves a finish on the Blood Diamond side. Instead of picking a side, I'm taking the under, minus 190 for the fight doesn't go. It's one of my favorite spots of the week, or under 2.5. You're muted, my friend.
Yep. Yeah. I like that spot a lot. Is that a spot that you played straight up?
Yes, I have played straight up. However, I'm waiting for it to come out on Bet365 as well. But -190 on DraftKings is the best available line right now. I played it for about half of what I'm going to end up playing it for in total.
Okay, cool. I like it. Yeah, my lowest prop this week. I started a little bit lower than usual too. It's at +165. I went with Jeon Kim by decision. That's one of those spots. I think last I saw, she was sitting right around like +110 or something like that. And this is a spot where I almost think you can consider her decision prop to be her money line almost. So I think getting that additional 55 cents on Jeon Kim by decision. And as far as kind of my basic breakdown of this fight, I think Kim is, much higher volume. If I don't have the numbers in front of me at the moment, and of course, we always want to give the caveat when we're looking at stats that we can't trust stats entirely. We also have to look into the details and see why the stats are the way they are. But looking at just the striking stats, if I remember correctly, Jeon Kim attempts like 16? It was correct, like 16 significant strikes per minute, and Edwards was only around half that, I think 9 or something like that. I can't remember for sure, but she was quite a bit higher on the significant strikes anyway. And I think she's a better technical striker. I think she's going to be busier. She has a reach advantage. Jocelyn Edwards' last fight against my girl, Ramona Pascual, it was just kind of weird. She threw a lot of kicks. She was throwing front kicks. She was throwing side kicks to the legs to keep distance, and then just kind of lunging forward with punching combos every once in a while. Whereas Kim is going to be more so the kind of fighter who's going to, keep her jab out there. She's going to be consistent, with her rather than just kind of exploding forward here and there. And, Edwards might land some big strikes here and there that knock Kim's head back a little bit. But I think Kim will be the better minute winner here. And I see her winning a decision and at +165. And I also want to say, I remember to mention this most weeks, not every week, but I don't bet every bet that I give out on this show necessarily, but I always make sure to tell you the ones that I do. And I can't remember if I already placed this one or not. I think I did, but this is a spot. Jeon Kim by decision at +165 is one of the props that I will be playing this week.
For sure. I like it. I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier about that same fight. One of the props that didn't make the cut was that Kim by split decision. That's also what I'm looking at as well. I do think she gets it done, but you never know. Texas judges. So I'm with you there.
Right.
I'll go ahead and I'll stick on the side of Texas judges with my second prop. I'll take my number one rule when it comes to sports betting. And you know what? It's let me down last time. But other than that, my number one rule is you don't bet against Derek Lewis. All right. He's a guy who he just finds a way to win most knockouts in UFC history. And despite his lack of, let's say, overall MMA talent, he finds a way to get it done. Second play, in Texas, not that big of a juicy number, but I'm going to have to take because it keeps climbing. I have not bet it yet because it is continuing to rise. Lewis by KO or TKO +165. It's a pretty straightforward. I saw them face off today. Pavlich wasn't as much bigger as I expected him to be, and despite him maybe definitely having the speed and technicality advantage, it's Derek Lewis. He has power. He finds a way to get it done, draw people into these firefights, and I definitely think that despite the let's say narrative of him being knocked out, not being the same way he used to, he's still a guy that throws with a bunch of power. He wants to win these fights. He's in Texas, and I think he has the ability to put anybody's lights out. +165. I'm sticking to my rule of not betting against Derek Lewis.
I like it. Yeah, I'm super excited for that fight. People who are like regular viewers of mine already know this, but since I've never done a show with you before, Gordo, you probably don't know this, but I am a heavyweight MMA guy. And I don't think there aren't a lot of us out there. Heavyweight is always kind of the division that people roll their eyes and like, oh, a heavyweight fight. I love heavyweight fights, and I always have. I love horrible heavyweight fights. I love two sloppy, terrible, low-level heavyweights fighting each other. I don't care who they are. I love heavyweight fights. I always have. And this is one that I am definitely particularly excited about. How can you not be, right? It's going to be an exciting fight, or it's very unlikely that it's not anywhere. Or it's very unlikely that it's not going to be exciting anyway. But yeah, I like that. I haven't put anything on that fight yet. I think it's going to be a stay away for me, but I'm I was looking at that under 1.5, but then I'm like, man, I don't know how much I trust that either, but I'm definitely excited for that fight. I think I'm just going to hang back and watch it, but I like it. For my second one, I think you're going to like this one. And actually, I'm thinking that it might end up showing up on yours too. I got to take a second to recognize Patrick here. Erik is the bum heavyweight whisperer. The world will never forget his Sherman round 3 KO prop. I don't know if you heard about that, Gordo, but
I did.
Yeah, the biggest prop I gave out on this show that week was Sherman round 3 KO. That was crazy. It's not like I actually thought that was a good call, but you know, sometimes you take those W's.
All power to you, man. Take it.
But yeah, for my second one, I'm jumping all the way up to plus 450, and I'm going with Pantoja by sub. And like I said, this was a fight where I didn't really feel like I had a great read. I'm largely trusting the community here, but even just looking at the numbers, you know, as far as I think I typed some stuff. Pantoja has 8 UFC wins, I believe 3 of those are by sub. You know, Perez is a guy who he averages almost 3 takedowns per 15 minutes. You know, he's a guy who will sometimes look to actively wrestle. I don't know necessarily that he will here, but even so, you know, I think there's a good chance that we do see some work happen on the ground at some point. And yeah, I thought plus 450 is a pretty decent number on that. I have not played that yet, but I probably am going to sprinkle like 0.2 units or something like that on Pantoja by sub.
For sure. I like that. We talked about it earlier. And you know what? I'm happy you mentioned that one because that gives me the ability to go out and grab another one of my long list of props because you just covered that one for me. I'm also on that side as well. Let's keep it on the submission side of things. My next one, I'm jumping up right there with you. Let's give you guys a big plus money number here because it is big money bets after all. Ooh, let's just make sure I'm getting the right number on this side. All right. We have ourselves a plus 500 best market wide. We're taking Rafael Alves by submission. So we're jumping up to Drew Dober is a guy who notably very, very tough, but he does have 4 submission losses on his record. Rafael Alves is an absolute tank, ton of power, very explosive, and very, very good chokes. I do think that despite Drew Dober being super, super tough and durable, having great recoverability, he does have he was rocked really early on last time out. And I think if anybody else is going to test that chin and maybe potentially get a club and sub, it is going to be Rafael Alves. I think he's got just this insane power, and he does go out there really strong and does have the ability to go out there and finish a fight from any angle, especially if it's getting dicey on the feet with that power of Alves. Although I think Dober may have the striking advantage, if he's not liking that power and the striking of Alves, he will shoot takedowns. Dober is very good at shooting takedowns, has a decent wrestling game, but his submission defense isn't as on par. With that being said, if he shoots in for a takedown, just like Casey did, I do think that neck will be there for the taking. Alves, great guillotine. I do think that the line at plus 500 is a bit wide. I'm liking me some Rafael Alves by submission.
I was just making a change to my list here based on the fact that you just gave out Rafael Alves by submission, as that was also my next prop was Rafael Alves by submission. So I'm moving some stuff around here, but tell you what, I don't really have anything to add to your breakdown of that. So why don't we just that's my third. Why don't we just swing back to you for your fourth right away?
All right, my fourth one. This is one where we're going to give out 2 sides to this thing. We're going to give you a safe one. They're going to give you what I'm playing. Okay. The one I had originally written down, the one I was going to play, was going to be Anthony Smith by submission. I love me some Lionheart Smith. Anthony Smith by submission is right now sitting at plus 1,500. Again, Magomed Ankalaev, he's a beast. We know that. He's a he's going to be a contender. He's going to be a title contender one day. We know that. Very good fighter. And aside from that last second submission from Paul Craig, he's undefeated, and he's really good at winning fights. But he hasn't really been dragged into deep waters, hasn't really been tested. The 1 second he felt really any bit of adversity, he got choked out. He tapped with half a second left, really. And I do think that Lionheart Smith has the ability to go out there and push a pace on him, drag him in deep waters, put him in spots where he doesn't really feel comfortable in. And at plus 1,500, it is very, very wide. The alternative I am going to give you that week, because I do get it's a very, very tricky spot to go and back someone at that price tag. We're going to give you the finish only line. Danny Lags pointed this out to me earlier today. I saw his prop drop side of it, and I just had to get on. Anthony Smith's finish only is at plus 310 or something like that. Again, it's a very niche prop, so I'm not really going to go out and tell you all about it as much. Just lets you know that if it goes to decision, the bet is void. And I do think Ankalaev is probably going to be the more apt to win a decision. That being said, you're still able to go out there and get the finish line on Anthony Smith. So I do think he's able to drag Ankalaev in deep waters. I'm cheering for Lionheart. I love Lionheart, but I do understand there's a very, very tall task ahead of him. A guy who's very technically sound, very responsible defensively. And I do think that if Anthony Smith's able to go out there and implement his game plan, it involves a lot of, let's say, grappling and tiring out and putting in uncomfortable situations. That plus 1,500 is going to look amazing.
Dude, I love both of those. And what the way that I prepare for this show is I start by just kind of grabbing a bunch of props that I like, and then I start looking up numbers and kind of moving them around and deciding. I make a line after 6, and I move some below the line, and then the ones that I'm going to go with, the 6 I'm going to give out on the show, go above the line. So the ones that I've got below the line this week, if I go down 2 or 3 below my 6, I've got Anthony Smith scorecards no action plus 350. That was one of the spots that I did like as well. It didn't quite make the cut, but yeah, I think for all the reasons you said, I think that's a really good spot. Even though I didn't put it in my 6, I might end up betting that one. I'm not sure yet, but it makes a lot of sense. It really does.
I probably will. I'm right there.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And so for my 4th one, and this is another one where I don't have to add much of a breakdown because we've already talked about it. Orion Kosi by KO in round 1 at plus 500.
KO,
and that would be, and that would be based on more of a ground and pound situation, based on him, likely being able to grind Blood Diamond against the cage some and maybe land some punches and then get the takedown and find himself in side control and land some elbows or something like that. So, and I was potentially looking at round 2 as well, but I decided to go with the round 1 there, and that's one that I do have a play on Orion Kosi's money line. I'm not sure if I'm going to hit that prop yet or not, but it's definitely one that I'm looking at. I end up thinking that I'm done with my bets, and then Saturday morning I pull up lines and I just start rapid firing props all over the place. So it may very well make the cut.
No, for sure. This is one of the ones where, again, one of the ones that was below the line for me was that Kosei round 1 submission. So a bit different of a path to victory for us, but we do completely agree with the outcome. We're in Kosei early on. I do think he's going to look insanely dangerous. So I'm with you. I like that play. All right. Let's see. All right, next up for me, I got 2 left. Let's give you, I don't want to say, this line hasn't moved at all. All right, this one's still the same line as it was before. It's the exact same odds as the last time around. Nick Negumereanu in round 3 plus 1,500. I do think that he's going to implement a very grind-heavy game plan this time, and he's going to be able to go out there and test the 20-2 Poteria this weekend. I think Poteria is a guy who hasn't really been dragged into deep waters, hasn't really been pushed to his breaking point. I think that the game plan, the style of Negumereanu is he's going to push forward, make it seem like Poteria is landing and cracking the chin, even though that Negumereanu has a brick for a head. When you're not going to go down like that, you're just tiring out your opponent. I do think that the guy with more heart, more resiliency is going to be Nick this weekend. I do think he goes out there, and the 3rd round could look pretty juicy for you because he's got the ability to wear him down. He's got the ability to go out there and be just a grinder. And despite him not having the best cardio in his own right, his style is going to probably favor him in the later stretches. Is definitely why I'm looking him there. So I do like Nick in round 3K, or let's say round 3, just because in case of a club and sub. But round 3 plus 1,500 is the next one up for me.
I like that. I was trying to be super smooth, and I had something I was going to add, but I didn't have the information in front of me, and I was going to try to pull this record up real quick. So I had that information, and my computer's being kind of slow. So now I'm just vamping until I have that information in front of me, and we are just about there. What I want to say to you is this, Gordo. How are you going to sit there on my stream and try to tell me that Ihor Poteria hasn't been drug into deep waters when he has a decision win over 0-3 Nikolai Garbuz? He has a decision win over 0-0 Alembek Temirov. He has a decision win over 1-2 Artur Kononenko, Gordo. Yeah, anyway, I just wanted to have some fun with that. Yeah, he's got some decision wins over guys who have never won a fight in their lives. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
That sounds like Askar Mozarov's career.
It absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Well, at least one of those names. What was that, Artur Potenko or something? Yeah, that's probably Askar Askarov right there. He probably beat him that night. We were on the 5th one. So my 5th one, and it sits at plus 650, is Juliana Pena by sub. I've been thinking about that fight a lot, and I've been thinking a lot about whether Juliana Pena's performance is to some degree something that's replicable or not. And I haven't watched any interviews with, I've some people have told me kind of that, Amanda Nunes in some interviews after that first fight had talked about difficulties she'd had, and that she was kind of drinking her own Kool-Aid a little bit and wasn't training as hard as she should have been and that sort of thing. I haven't actually watched those interviews, so I don't know what the details are exactly, but, I think it is fair to believe that Amanda Nunes wasn't entirely herself that night and wasn't entirely as prepared for that fight as she should have been. So that's something to keep in mind. But even if that is true, there's part of me thinks that it is potentially a replicable performance for Juliana Pena, at least to some degree. That, Amanda Nunes is going to come out and be dangerous early, most likely. We have seen Amanda Nunes fight 5 rounds, but we've also seen her gas out. And I really think the difference, if most of the time she's kind of having her way with her opponent, she's being allowed to fight at range. She's being allowed to pick her opponent apart. If you let her have the fight that she wants to have, she's going to fight for 25 minutes. But if you fight her the way that Juliana Pena is probably going to, if you grind on her and wrestle with her, I don't think that Amanda Nunes is going to necessarily be able to last very long in a fight like that. I mean, she wasn't able to the first time, whatever difficulties she had there, but Nunes is probably going to be dangerous early, but assuming Pena is able to survive those situations, assuming she's able to get her wrestling and her grappling going at some point, even if it's not in the first round, even if it's in the second round or whatever, I do think the possibility of a somewhat repeat performance isn't entirely unlikely, that she could wrestle with her, that she could grind on her, that she could wear her down and eventually find that submission. This is another one that I can't. I place bet. Sometimes I place the same bet twice, Gordo. I have the dumbest memory in the world. Sometimes I'll place a bet, and then like a day or two later, I'll place the same bet again because I forgot that I did it. And that's why I'm always like, I can't remember if I've placed this bet or not. It sounds stupid, but I literally can't remember. I think I did already put. No, you know what? I did, because I put 0.325 units on it. I remember because I put a weird amount on it. So yeah, I did put 0.325 units on Juliana Pena by sub. I did it already today. So yeah, that's what I've got for number 5. And I got to recognize that the man Daz Files did show up. Daz, I just showed right before you got here. I showed off the t-shirt. So thank you so much. It's a good quality shirt too. It's very comfortable. It's very soft. All right, you're up, Gordo.
All right, this is our last one too, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I believe it is.
All right, time to bring out the big boy. And honestly, I don't deserve for credit for this one. I was doing my weekly DFS breakdown show with Monk, Brady, and Wheezy on Wednesday night. We're sitting there in the lobby beforehand, right before we go live. Brady just yells out, "Hey, did you see Dontel Mays by sub was plus 2,000?" And I was kind of distracted for the first few minutes of that live stream because I had to go look at that. And I think that's a bit of a weird line. That's a bit wrong this weekend. That's what's going to be the last play for me. Dontel Mays plus 2,000 for a submission. He may have 0 submissions on his record, but he just got upgraded to a purple belt. He's a guy who's going to have a really good stylistic matchup to get that submission, whether it be by the early on while fending off the takedown attempts or by just a club and sub later on. He's going to have the cardio advantage, the grappling advantage, the size advantage. Overall, he's the better mixed martial artist. The best part about it is he's facing a wrestler. He's not going to have to go for takedowns because the only thing that Hamdi has in his back pocket is that wrestling. Therefore, him shooting for takedowns can put himself in the guillotine. Him being tired and not being able to fend off the striking later on can lead him to be club and subbed. Excuse me. I do think that he's very likely to go out there and have especially some submission attempts. And you look at the guy's record, 3-0, never really had any really grappling done against him. He's going to be put into some fights that are going to, or some spots that are going to be really new to him, really dangerous, and people panic in them. And I do think that this is a spot where plus 2,000, it's under a 5% implicated line. You got to give me that all day. I really like that. That's actually the only tracked prop I have so far for this card. Just because as soon as Brady mentioned it on the podcast, I had to go look at it. I absolutely love it. I think it's going to be a really weird fight, but all the signs point to this being a very possible outcome. And at plus 2,000, I had to jump on it.
Gordo, I'm so glad that you brought that one up. I noticed that line right before the show today, maybe within an hour or two before we did the show tonight. I was just kind of, I had a bunch of props typed up for the show, but I was like, I'm gonna go back through and just see if there's any other stuff I like. And I saw that. I think I saw it on Best Fight Odds. I don't even know if it's on a book that I have access to or not, but I saw that at plus 2,000, and I was like, I haven't heard anybody else talking about this. I kind of just forgot about it and moved on, because I was like, I haven't heard anybody bring that up or anything, but I'm glad you just mentioned it, because I had kind of forgot that I saw it, and now I wrote it down, because that is a spot that I'm going to hit too. And yeah, because the first thing I did then, of course, was look up Don'Tale Mays' record and look up, because see like, okay, well, has he had any subs or whatever? But yeah, you're exactly right. Like, he's not a guy who's necessarily going to be actively looking for the sub, but like you said, purple belt. If he's in a situation where that's going to be his best path to victory, if he's in a situation with a guy who probably isn't going to be both very good at defending subs and very good at keeping himself out of positions where a sub is likely in the first place, and I think we can probably say both of those things for Hamdi. Yeah, I like that. That's I'd almost feel it. That number is so big. Like, even though it's not a super likely outcome, usually I put 0.1 or 0.2 units on a big sub number. That's a spot I almost might put like half a unit on, just because the payout is so big, like it's almost worth taking a little bit bigger shot on that one. I like that. And you said you did bet it already?
Yeah, I only have 0.25 units, but I almost want to add to it, man. It's so weird.
Yeah,
and
like,
I know,
I might...
who did I see? Couch Warrior actually just put Don'Tale Mays round 3 submission plus 8,000 bet posted and tracked online. I was scrolling through Bet MMA tips and I saw that out there. So there's definitely people out there who agree with them. Like I said, Brady's the one who mentioned it to me. I think I also saw Clint on it as well. So it's a spot that people are becoming keen to. So maybe lock it in a bit earlier, because it was plus 2,200 on FanDuel. It's now dropped down to plus 1,700. It was plus 2,000 on DraftKings, now dropped down to plus 1,800. But there are still plus 2,000 available. So it's going to be a weird fight, but that's the spot I'm looking for. If that happens, we're going to be happy.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I've got access to that one. And one thing that you just said is the perfect transition into my final prop here. And some of the things we talked about earlier are perfect transitions into it as well. It's sitting out there as high as plus 6,600. But so I did put that number down, but it's at plus 5,000 on the book that I've got access to. Anthony Smith by submission in round 3. I mean, right? And I always type up like some little notes for each bet here, just so I can remember what my talking points are. And my entire note that I typed up for this one, I put Anthony Smith in round 3 by sub plus 6,600. And then I just put Paul Craig did it. That's my whole note for that. But yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. If we see a finish in this fight, I think it's more likely to come from the Smith side. Smith he's a good grappler. I think he's kind of underrated as a grappler. I think people kind of forget to think about his grappling sometimes. And we're likely going to see him in spots here where he's fighting off his back at times. I think we're likely going to see some grappling here. I think that Smith is a guy who can look for and find a variety of submissions. And yeah, I think especially at something like plus 5,000. Well, and you said when I first saw his submission prop, not picking around, just his straight submission prop, it was at like plus 1,600. I kind of wish I would have hit that, because I pulled it up today on my book and it was at plus 1,200, which is still pretty decent, but I'm probably going to have to sprinkle that sub round 3, for like 0.1 unit or something really small. But it's just one of those spots that it's just fun for the culture, right, Gordo? Awesome. You're muted at the moment, bud.
Oh yeah, no, I do like that for sure. It's it's one where if Anthony Smith is smart and stick to his game plan, it's going to be all about him trying to make Ankalaev uncomfortable. Because when you have a guy as technically sound and defensively sound as Ankalaev is, you have to make him uncomfortable. You have to drag him into deep waters. Path to victory is there. He's called Lionheart for a reason, and I like that big plus money number.
Heck yeah, dude, love it. We made it all the way through, Gordo. We made it all the way through our 6 legs of parlay action, our 6 props. Any other props that you had on your list that you feel like throwing out, or anything else that you want to mention before we wrap it up?
Yeah, the big thing for me this weekend are the unders on that Blood Diamond fight, the under in the Mays fight, and the under in the Lewis and Pavlovich fight. Again, Those are all chalky, so we're not gonna touch those. But anything else I'm looking at? Semmelsberger KO, something I'm looking at. Like you
Me
said,
too.
explosive. I like that one there. Like I said, Kim by split decision is another one I'm going to throw out there. And last but not least, not the prettiest of number. It is kind of juiced, especially since it has moved a bit recently. But I was looking at Moreno in 4-5 or decision as well.
What number is that at?
That's exactly what I'm trying to plan up right now.
I was looking at Moreno by decision, and I think when I looked at it, it was at like plus 130 or something like that.
Oh, was it? Okay, so that I guess it can't be much better than let's say
that might have been Bet Online though, which doesn't have great numbers usually.
Let me find it real quick. I'm gonna have to pull up my phone because it's not a best fight odds. Don't worry, we're fast. I'm stalling, and there I am. Okay, so it has moved. It's not exactly as it was before because I did see it almost near evens, but now it is plus 105. So still plus money. Not as pretty, but still plus money on Brandon Moreno.
That was 4-5 or decision?
Yes.
I think that's a great play. If I had access to that, which I don't because I don't have books that have that, but that's one I would play, I think. I like that a lot.
Awesome. All right.
Daz Files throws out a thanks, Gordo and Eric in chat. Best of luck on your bets. Man, I'm just going to start ending all of my shows by letting Daz sort of say the final goodbye there. He's always got a nice at the end there. But Gordo, before we call it, why don't you go ahead and just kind of let everybody know where they can find you on your socials and whatnot and sort of what you've got going on every week as far as content.
For sure. Well, first of all, thank you for the platform. Thank you for having me on the show. I had a good ability to go out here and talk these with you. I really appreciate you for having me on. And I've been looking forward to doing this for a while, so happy to finally do it. You've been killing the game. Pleasure to finally meet you. Other than that, man, everything you can find from me on Twitter at GamblesGordo. Like you mentioned earlier, my YouTube is Plays and Fate Sports. Right now, I got an hour break before my next live stream where I am going to be editing my DFS breakdown, trying to get it up there as quickly as possible because at midnight, Liam's Picks Fights channel going live with a someone I see in chat, actually. Spoiler alert. And my man, Lou Betcha as well. So two people we see in chat. Addicted to Combat is going to join us as well. Going to be a fun breakdown of this card. Going to be a good ability to go out there and make some money. Other than that, again, on Twitter, at GamblesGordo, on YouTube, at Plays and Fate Sports. Thank you for the opportunity, and good luck to you and your bets.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much for being here, Gordo. If anybody's in chat right now or anybody watching this later, if you don't yet follow Gordo, I did link all of his stuff in the description of the video down there. His Twitter and his YouTube are down there. So please make sure to do that. If at the beginning of the show, I gave you all the reasons that you should be following Gordo. He's out there killing it, making money and winning contests and all that crazy stuff. But yeah, I want to shout out everybody in the chat again. I'm not going to be able to get everybody, but Gabriel Huber's here. Sicky does MMA. Lou Bet, Addicted to Combat. Oh, Jackie Halliday, Daz Files, of course, was here. Grateful Dude, Frank Newman. I missed a bunch of people, but we got Nathan Petras at the end there with a Ric Flair woo. That's a great way to end it as well. But thank you so much for being here, everybody. This has been Big Money Bets. I am Eric with Erik Bets Fights. You guys know where to find me, but that stuff's all down in my Twitter, and all that stuff is down there. If you could please leave a like on this video, please also subscribe to Erik Bets Fights, and if you haven't yet, please also subscribe to the Never Hedge Media YouTube channel. I put out some of my content there as well. It's been a pleasure having you all here. I hope you enjoy the fights this weekend. Take care, everybody, and have a great night.